Welcome to Builders, the podcast for leaders who want to build great companies. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic advisor to world-class builders. This podcast dives into the wild rides and personal transformations that come with pursuing big dreams and becoming a leader who builds incredible teams and companies. Each episode, I'm joined by a guest who helps deliver a fresh perspective designed to leave you feeling less lonely, more connected to innovative ideas, and inspired about growing your business your way. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite channel, leave us a 5-star review, and share your favorite episode with a friend. The podcast is sponsored by Alex Snyder Advisory. If you are a business leader or executive team ready to take your leadership and company to the next level with a high-performing team, we'd love to see how we can rocket fuel your growth. Check out the show notes to book your free Builders Business Booster call, where you'll receive a strategic leadership audit and 3 concrete focus areas to mature and grow your business. All right, thanks for tuning in. Let's build. Aeon, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to dive into today's conversation. You and I have some really interesting crossovers in our work where it touches on leadership, but we come from really different angles. So I think it's going to be a unique discussion. We actually met a couple years ago here where I am today in Playa del Carmen, and a place that you called home for many years. And we've had this really interesting evolving relationship. You started out as a client, that's evolved into this really wonderful friendship. Our community kind of expanded. So I am so grateful for you taking the time today, because you're joining us from, if I'm not mistaken, Florida, en route to Chicago for the first leg of your world book tour.
Yeah, I'm in Miami right now.
Oh, so exciting. So let me just start off by letting you properly introduce yourself, because you are so amazing. I don't even want to try to do, should we Chrome sled? Might be the
I have a big background of varying things, and people are always like, wait, what? But yeah, so I started my career in the early 90s in tech. I started one of the first web design companies in the world that specialized in when VRML came out and AI and really pushing the boundaries of the internet. And then I kind of had a spiritual crisis around 2000 to 2003. I just really didn't like the way my life was going or the industry was going. And I got into sustainable communities and building sustainable communities for 14 years. And during that time, like, all these spiritual gifts were coming online. I was working with various mystics and oracles and shamans and yogis, tantrics around the world who were training me as my spiritual gifts were coming online very rapidly. So that put me in a role of like spiritual guide and mentor. And then 10 years ago, I opened my mystery school, Know the Self, to really help people live with purpose, how to govern their own energy body. I realized, like, a lot of the crisis in the world, it came down to our internal crisis and where we're at as humans. And so I've always been on this trajectory of expanding consciousness, of helping people like really live into their potential to find purpose. And now I'm working with extraordinary leaders who are having extraordinary vision, really helping them master their energy and live in peak flow state. Yeah.
I love it. There are so many things just in the introduction that I want to dig into. I'm already feeling like we're going to need a follow-up episode. So let me just get this out of the way before we dive further in. You are a master mystic. And for those of us joining live or listening to this on the podcast, can you explain what is a master mystic?
Yeah, I realize a lot of people don't know what that means. It's a title given by peers and mentors when you reach a certain level of adepthood or spiritual mastery over numerous spiritual gifts. So, and it comes only after 25 years of working as an adept. So an adept in spiritual mastery means that you have a high level of accuracy with your gifts when your gifts come online. So this could be all your clairsenses, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance, but it goes beyond that. I awakened my Kundalini in 2003. But prior to that, I was already awakened to a lot of spiritual gifts. But once my Kundalini opened, like a lot of gifts came online suddenly. So I'm a
Mm.
medium, a channeler, kind of name it with the paranormal. I've been doing it for a very long time. And so after 20 years, you go into a level of mastery and get the title Master Mystics. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
I've been on the journey a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I think it just makes sense that if you have been honing a skill for that period of time, that master kind of makes sense.
It's
But
not, yeah, and it's confusing for people because, you go to get your master's and, spend a number of years and you get a certificate. Um, Mysticism works through mentorship and initiation and traversing multiple states of consciousness. And it's kind of like a video game. You get awakened to the next level of spiritual mastery when you're ready, and there's a lot of trials and tribulations, and you move through these different levels. So I had 9 years of very intense shamanic initiation. And yeah, it goes really deep into the paranormal and the mysteries of life and how we're kind of why we're here, what we're doing on the planet, how the universe operates. And I think quantum physics really helps explain a lot of that. But, the ancient mystery schools and indigenous people have known for very long. So amongst my peers, I'm recognized as a master mystic, and there are very few of us on the planet.
it makes me think of kind of more the old school masters, if you think about in the arts and in the trades and in, that you reach a level that is, very, I don't know if elite is the right word, but like you said, very few of you in the world, and where you are known to the other masters of your level in the world. So I think that makes total sense. And to your point, we've co-opted that word for degrees and certificates a little bit different.
Yeah. So there's no certificate. Yeah.
Fair.
Those understand. And it's not, mystics generally are hermits, and I myself have been a hermit much of my life. However, right now I feel it's really important to merge what I know from business and what's going on in the world and take a stronger stance in leadership because of what's happening in the world. So I guess I've come out of the closet in a sense in using that title more recently, just to presence myself in certain circles that, yes, I do understand the spiritual arts, and I'm here to bring those gifts forward and play a bigger roles. And, I've always been backstage working with, leaders, and now I'm being asked to kind of step forward. And it's not very comfortable because people don't understand those arts. And, I think more and more with the awakening on the planet, and people are just, we're evolving as humans. So I think it's getting more normalized to communicate, and more people are having experiences. I mean, even our government is finally acknowledging the fact that we are not alone in the universe. So it helps in these moments to know that, yeah, there's someone who's been doing this a long time, so I'm there to support those who are specifically leaders who are really waking up to levels of consciousness and frequencies, energies that, they're not easy to navigate if you don't have a guide. So I pilot with them, I help them see, like, when you reach levels of consciousness that are beyond what you normally knew, or beyond your belief set, um, it starts to crack and fracture, and you start feeling like, am I going crazy? Like, what's going on? And there's not, in the Western world, we don't have containership for that. Like, you can't go to the doctor. They're just going to medicate you, or
Right.
there's very few people. Like, when it happened to me, I was in business, I was in tech. I couldn't explain to the people how I knew what I knew or where I got my information from. And yet they called me an expert. But if I told them, well, I get pulsed by a star in the sky in the middle of the night when I meditate, and then I know the answer, like, that doesn't fly in a business meeting.
Right.
Don't that, right? But if you get the results and it proves accurate and it proves beneficial, they pay you. So I learned to keep my skills very quiet since I was a child, because it wasn't, accepted. And I think we're at a time where it's absolutely critically needed. So I'm presencing myself in a way that I haven't in the past.
That's so interesting to hear you talk about, skills that are less tangible. I'm the first person to say that soft skills are absolutely vital in leadership to support the maybe more hard skill, in order to build effective teams and scalable businesses, sustainable businesses. Typically, when I talk about that, I'm talking about things like self-awareness, integrity, vulnerability, uncomfortable conversations, difficult decisions. I hear you talking a lot about spirituality. And so I'm wondering from your experience, how does that kind of fit into the picture? I know you've talked about spiritual leadership.
Yeah. And, spiritual has such a weird word. I mean, even for myself, when I was in tech, I was like, oh God, like I really, it was hard for me to even accept that I have these gifts or come out with them because I thought, oh, they're going to put me in this box, right? But spiritual leadership is so critical because our religious leaders have failed us, right? I have a really strong story of my childhood religion really creating a lot of damage. And I think, it's universal. Name the religion, there's somebody who's misused that power. However, we are spiritual entities, all of us. Like we have a spiritual framework. And so I use the word spiritual to speak to that invisible energy, that source of life that animates us. And so having that spiritual connection to ourselves, uh, it doesn't matter your belief set, like each one of us has a soul, we have a spirit, we're being animated by something much larger than our mental construct can fathom. And when we start to really allow the spirit in us to speak, to animate, to make decisions, to lead our lives, that is spiritual leadership. And I think it's needed now more than ever because, we have an issue of ethics. We have an issue of where our leaders are going. And, most people don't have trust in others. What about trust in yourself, right? And that comes from knowing your spirit and really trusting your instincts, trusting your intuition, trusting your inner guidance. And I think each one of us, we're seeing already like meditation in the workplace, which makes me so happy. People are taking time to pause and just, mindfulness. Those are stages. Even, yoga, the asana practice, people are doing it for exercise. Those are gateways to really understanding your spiritual nature. And so knowing our spiritual nature, accepting that is what we are, period, at a biological, anatomical level, we are spiritual. So not that I'm spiritual. All of us are, the spirit animates us and we need to honor that. And if we don't, I think we're in grave danger. We're destroying things when we ignore spirit. So
I've heard you talk about, the new style of leadership being more collaborative, potentially having, feminine wisdom as the keys to protecting our future. And I'm curious because of what you just said, what are we protecting from?
Well, I think, we've seen greed and misogyny and wars and, what we're dealing with right now in the Middle East and the genocide. And it's unconsciousness, it's ignorance. We're protecting from that. And when we've had a world run by, this sort of patriarchal design, and I'm not bashing men at all. It's just a phase and it's an evolution, right? Where women were suppressed for thousands of years. And now we're seeing a lot of women step into leadership, which really makes me happy. And it's so critical because the feminine wisdom, which we men and women both have, but it's all those soft skills you mentioned, like empathy, intuition, collaboration, nurturance, inclusivity, holistic thinking, cycles, thinking about systems and cycles, and interconnectedness and humanity. Those are all feminine leadership traits that, when I was in tech and working, I worked with only men for almost 20 years, I didn't have any women at the table with me. And that's a long time to be the only woman in a room and be the only one asking the questions like, what is the impact of this? Or, if we put this out in the world, how are people going to deal with this? What I was working with the, first instances of machine learning and artificial intelligence when did that start? Like 1999. And we brought it to market around 2000. And then it was like, who's our clients going to be? What sector are we selling to? And the guy who created it, Dr. Manny Chandy out of Caltech, he was such a humanitarian. He was like really wanted it. He developed it with the government, Clinton administration, to be like a command and response for disaster relief and for the Red Cross and for aid. And when they came to me and asked, do you have a business application for this? Or do you think we can bring this to the market? And I was so excited because of that vision. Wow, this can really help people. This can be our personal secretary. This can do. So I started wrapping that technology with application. And, we first tried, a B2C market. And then I think it was, the market quickly shifted. And so we had to pivot. And then we became like a B2B company. And so we started selling into corporations. Then it was like, okay, manufacturing could really use this. Who needs to handle this? And then I was the one always asking those questions. Well, how are they actually going to use it? Like, this could be dangerous for certain companies to have this kind of technology. What if they use it like in a sneaky way? And then our CEO goes and sells it to Enron. And we know what happened to Enron, and it was just like the most unethical company. And we were like, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, they bought it. I'm like, of course they bought it. They're greedy and they want a leg up on their competition. And so they're going to use this in an unethical way.
Right.
And it wasn't our software that took them down, but they were already unethical in doing it. But like,
it already opened Pandora's box.
But we gave them this toolbox, and I just thought, what are we doing? I wanted to shake people. Like, this is not okay. And that wasn't the first time that happened to me. I mean, it happened in multiple times in tech when we were working with new technology. And I saw, I was like, what about the kids? What about what if they use it for that? And nobody, those are the uncomfortable conversations, right? That people who are looking at the bottom line and numbers and growing quickly, they don't want to sit and answer those harder questions because they want profit fast. They want, to run the market. They want to be the first to market. They want to, dominate all the words they're using, right? And that's not feminine wisdom. Feminine wisdom is sitting there screaming like, my children, or the grandchildren, like next gen, like what? Why would we do that? And so that kind of leadership, which is coming through men also, it's not just women that have that, but those soft skills, those deeper questions of impact are so critical right now.
It sounds like you're talking to a degree about, inclusion and equality and transparency. What are some of the aspects, I guess, of the new leadership style or how maybe teams are formed that we should be thinking about as we're looking at organizations or forming our own organization?
Well, for me, what I'd like to see are more circle structures, like no top down, but smaller teams, expert teams, collaborative teams, where people are really valued and heard, and it's not one leader, but it's distributed leadership. And that's what we're doing with Leadership Squared, is really trying to pave a new model and really discuss. We don't know what the model is. It's not like this is the model, but it's questions. It's a set of questions that you ask yourself and you ask your team and you get there together, right? It's not, no one leader has the answers. It's just not possible. Like, we need each other to see holistically. And when someone gets silenced and someone else gets too much power, we have a problem, a big problem.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're talking a lot about emotional intelligence, which is kind of different from intellect. experience and a myriad of other qualities that we tend to associate with leadership, expertise. What do you think is most important, or maybe what's the balance if we think about strong, sustainable leadership of the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, emotional intelligence definitely plays a role. It's sort of like the baseline. If you're not emotionally intelligent, you shouldn't be in a position of leadership whatsoever. I mean, that's
I
just kind of a requirement to be in a leadership position, because if you're flying off the handle and can't balance and can't articulate what you're feeling, we've got an issue, right? But I think it comes to, so when I started communities, I was really frustrated. For in 15 years, I seeded 14 different communities. They all failed at different levels. Some of them are still running. I'm not there for a reason. And that reason being is that we couldn't get along. So I was creating model after model, and I kept tweaking and refining. And the actual baseline, you need to know, how do you deal with conflict? So conflict resolution is critical in every, like, how do you handle a conflict, period? It can be just something that pops up that it just irks you. Are you going to stay silent and hold that as resentment? Are you going to find a way to clear and process without over processing and becoming this like heavy burden on the other person? And in those 15 years and me kind of banging my head against the wall and having a lot of grief that, like, why can't we get along? And I realized, well, community governance is like being married to 12 people. It's a
Yeah.
circle structure, and I'm not saying consensus is the way, because that's also really hard.
Yeah.
However, if you don't have a way to deal with conflict, which is really what it all came down to, is like conflict, uncomfortable conversations around power, money, ownership, intellectual rights, all those uncomfortable conversations, and navigating them with ease is where I think new leadership needs to get super skilled up in, if we are to really see a powerful future where everybody is being looked after and everybody rises together. Otherwise, we are continuing down this path of kind of self-destruction and war and competitive, like the horrible dystopian future that many of us are fearing, which is right in front of our faces every day. If we don't want that, then we need to find our own inner leadership. And I think this is why I wrote the book. This is why I stopped building external communities and really just started working on self-governance. Because what it came down to is people don't know how to sit quiet with themselves long enough to really even understand what they're feeling and what they're experiencing. And they're just projecting, right? They're assuming a lot of things, and then they show up and they react and they project and they make decisions quickly that impact other people without really, taking time to listen. This isn't a world where slowing down feels normal. We're not allowed to slow down. It's like if you're in the middle of a work day and you need to go take a walk or take a nap or, go for a massage, it's shunned on, it's, oh, you're not thinking of right now. And in fact, those are the moments when your emotions catch up with you and all the things that are going, you're like, oh, wait a second. Did I just like totally ignore that person who brought something very valid to me because I was just like, I got to close today and I'm not really taking time to see that there's like a critical issue here, or this could really, I'm steamrolling someone, or because leaders, we think that, I've run 7 companies, so I know what it's like to feel like you have all the pressure, all the responsibility. You need to make the decisions. You need to get the money in, to pay the payroll, to do the things, and you just run, right? And who's taking time to just meditate and ask themselves the hard questions, or even ask their team some hard questions, and be willing to know that we might be going in a wrong direction?
Yeah.
And the companies that do that have shown us that they excel, because there are companies that are being more innovative. They've figured this out. Like,
Right.
we haven't figured out all the things, but we're seeing that there are evolved companies out there and they're leading the way.
Yeah.
It gives me a lot of hope.
And, you don't necessarily win on all metrics, but to look around and see some of the biggest, most capitalized companies in the world finding ways to source ideation and innovation and create, unique working parameters within their day for their teams. There's got to be something behind it, right? And for them, maybe it is just to get the best minds and use them to create more money, which maybe not what we're talking about as the ideal situation here, but there is value in it in terms of the market and capitalization and innovation, and there's other value in it that we can see for societies.
Yeah.
You're talking about a really different world, and something that I'm noticing is really what we're talking about. So much of it is change. And in many aspects of life, tech, business, change is happening on a larger scale and faster than ever before. It just feels like we're constantly speeding up the iterations. So I'm wondering, what does the new era of leadership need in order to equip people, teams, organizations for this increasingly extreme and exponential pace of change?
Yeah. That is the question. That's the question we should all be asking ourselves. So in my life, I've had to navigate extreme change rapidly. That a lot of my initiations were that, like when your belief structures, when everything you know and love's been stripped from you, when you're dealing with, tragedies and destruction far beyond anything you could have imagined, whether it's a natural disaster or death of a loved one or an onset of an illness or your whole world collapses, or like we saw with the pandemic. Like, we are living at a time of mega change, rapid change, exponential change. And if we don't know how to hold steady and navigate, we self-destruct, we implode, we're seeing so much suicide and so much mental illness right now. I mean, this week alone, I've heard just from personal phone calls of those close to me, 4 people take their lives. And these are people that no one assumed were suicidal, and it strikes me like this is the world we're living in now, and it's getting faster because people can't navigate change. So this is a huge problem. This is the epidemic, is how do we navigate this world that is moving so fast, and we don't all agree. And so this is all a plug for my book.
I love it. I was about to ask you about that.
Like, this is what we need to do. And that's why I read. That's why I'm so passionate. That's why this is the 4th edition.
Yeah.
Because I have been sharing this, and over the years, I wrote the first book in 2016. I launched it in early 2016, and I've reiterated it 4 times for different reasons. But the primary reason is that as I've been teaching it to people and I see, oh, that didn't quite translate. Oh, we need to refine that. I need to explain more there. I need to help them, because when I went through my initiation, so the image on the top, this is what our anatomy looks like. This is what we look like as a spiritual being. That's why I use this as the cover. We have a framework larger than our physical body. And when we illuminate our soul essence, we light up from the center, and we receive our energy from above and below, from the source of life and from the earth. And when we learn to really hone our full anatomy, energetic anatomy, we start to know things and be able to navigate very rapidly while staying totally at peace. And it's a long story how I understood this. And, this is many hours, many chapters of a book long to explain. So I'm giving a condensed version. But the answer to your question is, we need to learn how to be spiritual being in the human form, so that, because our biology knows how to evolve through this time. And I believe that every single one of us, within that light inside of us, we hold answers. This is the circle model. Bless you. That we hold answers that the other people in our circle need. And so when we get quiet enough, when we connect to our inner wisdom, not our brain, but our heart wisdom and the actual biology that lives in us, because we're immortal beings that came here, right? And when we tap into that and we unlock our human potential, it's incredible what happens. Our geniuses connect. And when geniuses connect, we have solutions suddenly that are so beyond what the mind could have thought of. It's as if they just sort of drop in. And, if you talk to any inventor, or if you even just go back and research the top inventions and find out like where they originated from, it was generally out of the blue. Somebody sitting and, that light bulb above the head in the cartoons, it's really a light in the heart. It's something sparks. What we came here to do. And I believe that we all have a mission and we have a role to play. If you're alive right now, if you're listening to this, you have a genius in you that's needed by your community, by your family, by the people around you. And when we connect genius to genius, we actually enter into a totally different frequency, and the world becomes so much more beautiful. And we feel like, wow, we're made for this. We're here to do this. And
Wow.
we restore our hope and we restore our connection as humans. And that is missing. So my tour that I'm on right now is to just go around, share this. I am a very introverted person. I don't like self-promotion. That's why I'm laughing. And my book,
I love it. You brought it up and I was like, I love that because I know you really well and I know you're not, you're quite introverted. But just before we jump into the tour, the title of the book is Synchronicity.
Yeah.
What does that mean? How does that tie into what you've just been explaining about connecting and being open to our own genius and inspiration?
Yeah, so it's Synchronicity, Unlock Your Divine Destiny is the subtitle. And synchronicity is something we all experience, right? It's not something that's only for the woo-woo or the magical or the mystical or the religious. Synchronicity is something I'm sure every single person has experienced, whether you call it a synchronicity or not. It's a coincidence, a meaningful coincidence, a string of events that kind of happen in your favor. It could just feel like good luck. But what I've found following synchronicity since I was a young kid, it was always an answer to my prayers. It was a response to what I was intentioning or wishing for. And it opened so many golden doors. It was leading me into a like magical adventure rather than an analytical plotting and planning of my life. And it put me in really peak flow states of just pure magic. It's my friend Adam said it's magic made manifest. And I love that because it really is. It's when things that we don't understand, string theory or quantum entanglement, but a synchronicity happened and we see it.
Right.
It's, whoa, how did these things happen? We're talking about, I don't know, just yesterday, I was with my friend, we were talking about something in the loss of a loved one. And then we looked up and the name on the building was his name. And we never saw the building before, but we were like sitting there speaking of this departed soul and feeling something. And we look up and there's the name and it was, it's what? And yet wave of connection. And like, how did we decide to stop here and sit here and have this discussion and go into this deep connecting state? And then we look up and there's this sign, like literally a sign side of a building. And it's an unusual name. It's not a common name. So it was like, wow, okay, that's just one moment. I have thousands of them and you can read the book a lot.
Yeah. You mentioned performance and flow states. What is peak
Exactly.
flow?
Peak flow state is when life unfolds in front of you without thought, in perfect ordination. So a peak flow state is like you wake up naturally exactly when you're supposed to wake up and your day unfolds in perfect harmony and joy. And you're just carried through your day with a state of elation and like peace and purpose and connection. And you don't need to like analytically get involved. You
Right.
can just show up and allow kind of the magic carpet ride to take you through your day, and everything gets accomplished. And much better than what you could have done if you sat there and you forced yourself and, kind of disciplined yourself into production mode, which is what we do in
Mm.
business,
Yeah, that
right?
sounds amazing. Wake up naturally, the birds help you get dressed, and then you just smash
Yep.
everything on your to-do list.
What about Snow White or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Cinderella's
like
no one. Yeah.
Sleeping Beauty, I don't know, whatever that
Yeah.
fairy tale is, but yes, it's like that, and I've experienced
Love
peak
that.
flow states a lot in my life, and I live in a peak flow state as much as possible, but every day a little bit, and some days a lot, some days not at all, sometimes I get off it, but when I'm out of my practice, and so in my book, I talk about my synchronicity method. I now called it the synchronicity method. That's what's different in this edition,
Mm.
because I needed to name it so people understand why they're doing it. If you don't let them know it's for peak flow state and for your genius to guide you, then they're like, okay, I will sit for 10 minutes, 5
Right.
minutes every day and activate my container and my geometry in order to reach the peak flow state. That is
Right.
the gift of doing the synchronicity method. And then in peak flow state, synchronicity just happens all day long. Like, it is like by magic. Like, you walk up to the door and somehow it's being held open for you. You don't need to knock. There's guides everywhere. I play with it with parking a lot. I just show up, and before I get to my destination and I'm driving, I'll just say I'm, maybe running behind time, and I'm like, okay, I'm expanding time. I'm not going to rush. I'm not going to put myself in a tizzy and stress out. I'm just going to like enjoy the ride, sing the song, whatever it is, to enjoy it, enjoy the nature, enjoy the view. And when I arrive, I will get a parking right in front. And it always happens. Like, I just show up and I zoom
I
in.
mean,
And
that alone is worth 5 minutes in the thing for most
exactly.
people.
And when you
Yeah.
don't do it, when I don't do it, it's a very different day.
Yeah. And I can absolutely relate to that. I think, we talk about this in a lot of different ways. Your reticulating, activating system, like how you perceive things and how you react to them, like also creates that loop, right? The day that starts off rough and you're this and you're that, and then it feels like you hit every red light on the way and all the things versus the day that you, like you said, you wake up on your own, and so you just get up, and then you have that few extra minutes, then you're out the door, and then it feels like you hit every green light, and you smile, and other people smile at you, and yeah, so that I often think of it as a kind of building, like, of momentum, of, like, things just piling on, and they can pile on in one way or another way.
Absolutely. Yeah, because your thoughts, create the energy field also. And so
Right.
if you haven't, taken time, and it's my synchronicity method, some people call it meditation. It's more of an activation. It's an alignment
Mm.
practice. It's an active state of presencing, and you do it with the imagination and you do it with deep breath and awareness. So you can get into a deep meditation once you've done it. It really helps and aids meditation, but my synchronicity method activates your sleeping cells, your genius.
Mm.
So actually, it will start to change you and transform you from the inside out. You will have your gifts will wake up, your purpose will wake up. You'll start feeling driven in a different way, and people will treat you differently when you've done it. You'll start seeing your relationships shift very rapidly because it's showing what you are and not. So empathy can easily turn into taking on everybody else's issues. A lot of women have that. A lot of sensitive
Know what
people.
you're talking about.
Where you're just like, oh my God, like this person's unwell, so then I'm unwell, or this person is sad, so now I can't function because I'm taking all their sadness. One of my initial gifts was deep empathy, and I had to learn how to protect myself from what's mine and not mine. And so my synchronicity method helps you to frame your geometry to really understand that's not yours. So we're only
Mhm.
responsible for what's inside our geometry. That's it. In the whole world, that's all we're responsible for. And we create a whole internal universe that we become the creator and the sovereign of. And that is our responsibility. When we're outside of our, what I call the bubble or the container, we start making a mess. We start manipulating others. We start using other people's energy to fill ours. We start pushing and pulling, and we create so much friction in our lives. And when we're vertically aligned and we're fully formed, it's easy to see, toxic relationships. It's easy to see, okay, it's easy to have emotional intelligence in that moment. It actually instantly creates a mirror of, oh, I'm feeling like this. And, oh, this isn't mine. Oh, I can send that back. It's critical. It's a very quick tool. Anybody can learn it. I teach it to kids. It's for free on my website if you want to just practice that and not read the book. I made an audio version too, because a lot of people don't want to read and they just want to hear it. And it's a book that the way I've written the book is in 7 keys. So each key is meant to be like digested as another tool of awareness. And as you understand that level of awareness, things just start unlocking and you start finding yourself in deeper flow state.
Yeah.
And for business, it's just critical, especially right now. So I really want to reach a lot of business leaders because we need them to be fine-tuned. Like, it's not an option right now. There's too much at stake, and if you're listening to this and you're responsible for a lot of other people and your decisions impact a lot of people, please do the synchronicity method. Learn it.
Right.
Get in the flow.
I love the way you described like what's yours, what isn't. I think just for those listening, this is related to boundaries, related to emotional intelligence. I almost envisioned when you described it, the idea of, if you were in a restaurant and the waiter brought you the wrong dish and you were just like, no, it's fine, which like some of us will do, right? Like we've all been there and, maybe different extremes, but how different it is to be able to say, this isn't what I ordered, or this is not mine, and to kind of send it back and have the patience to wait and have what you desired. And, imagine starting your day that way versus starting your day eating something that like you didn't want, you didn't order, maybe you're like slightly allergic to, right? Like how different of a start to your day is it to be consuming what you wanted, how you wanted versus what was brought to you and you didn't have the boundary or the ability to say, oh, that's not actually mine. Like that's kind of what I envisioned when you said it. And I wanted to, I guess, mention that because I think it's really helpful sometimes to have a little bit of a visual for people, but also to know is that kind of along the right lines, what I'm saying around?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, it's really self-care and it's how we source our energy. So yes, if you're with your analogy, if you're sourcing your energy by eating food that you didn't order, that was just like put on your plate and it's toxic for you, like you've got an allergy and it's making you sick and you know it, like how do you send it back? And a lot of people don't know how to do that. And I explain it's quite easy. And the imaginal realm has been, let's say, I don't know, punished isn't the word, but it's been shunned by so many people. Like, oh, that's your imagination, or oh, you're making that up, or who cares? Nobody can see what I'm thinking about. Well, I can tell you, we can. Like,
Yeah. On the flip side, we're learning the power of imagination, right? That if you think about something happening that is emotional, your brain and body almost don't know the difference between what you've just imagined and something real. And you can almost absorb the impact of a really terrible event that you have just thought of, right?
Yeah, like in sports, that practice, which was taught by probably a mystic somewhere initially, of, performance, right? Like you see yourself,
Visualization.
winning over and over again. And therefore, when you perform, you can easily win because you've already done it. You've experienced it.
Yeah.
It's the same. And so the power of the imagination, it's so critical. It is the screen on which our soul communicates with us. And you can write and read from that screen. There's people always say, well, how do I know I'm not making it up? And I'm like, well, if you're projecting it onto the screen, you're drawing it. But if you're watching the screen and it appears, that's your intuition. That's when your soul is their spirit is communicating with you. And so when you do my synchronicity method, this skill gets really strong. And that's when things start really unlocking. And it's a powerful practice. I imagine what would the world be like if everyone did that,
Right.
just as like personal hygiene, just like
Mm.
brushing your teeth. You just did that. We would live in a beautiful world, I'm sure. It would
Mm.
be so much more harmonic. People wouldn't have the fighting. And, I look at the war in Israel right now and I'm thinking, is that for real? Are we that
Mm.
backwards that we have to just like murder so many people to make a point? It just seems like, how is war even still a part of
Right?
this reality?
The more connected we've become, you would think that we would become
Don't we have better tools
and
than
would
killing?
diminish that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Y- Yeah, absolutely. You're doing a year-long book tour around the world, but it's not the typical bookstore readings and signing with a couple speaking engagements. You're doing things a bit differently. Like tell us
Yeah.
how you're doing your book tour. What is the Synchronicity Aeon Karris version?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah, it was sort of dropped down to me that I needed to do the tour the way I teach the practice and to be really outside my comfort zone also because I'm still learning to not, my old self still wants to plan. I'm a Virgo like you, and we love plans and lists and like productivity. And it was very clear that, my soul genius was like, if you plan it, you're gonna fall short. You're not gonna be open to the miracles and the mystery and everything that's trying to find you because we plan from an analytical place. And when it was like, you need to just take one step at a time and let it unfold and let yourself find pure alignment. Because sometimes, in business, we make decisions that are good enough or okay, or we base it on price. And I'm really playing with a different way of offering my work, being in the world where it's not about the traditional business sense, which is still very uncomfortable. I do come from a business background, so it is uncomfortable for me to do it as much as I can do it in my personal life when it comes to like travel and arrangement and like flight. Yeah, and at 51, it's not, I don't feel the same as I did when I did it when I was 19.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
different.
me too.
So,
I rocked
yeah,
up
so
places
I'm
with nowhere
doing
to
it
stay that
where
night.
with that.
Yeah. I said, yeah, me too. I rocked up places with nowhere to stay that night and just figured it out. But,
Yeah, and that's not something I wanna do at this age, but what I'm being asked to do is I have a list of all the people I wanna see in the world, which are, people that the communities I started, I wanna visit all of them and check in with people and just my friends all over the world who I wanna connect. COVID and the whole pandemic pushed us all apart. I think so many of us are feeling disconnected, so one part of the tour is really just connecting with all the people that I love around the world and anyone I've connected to through my online format to see them in person and to work with people in person. And so I have a list of people in all these cities, but I'm not planning in what order. I have sort of chunks like, okay, East Coast in the spring for the weather or, Europe in the summer. But the way I get there and what happens next, I'm allowing the universe and all of those who are kind of magnetizing me, the communities that need me to pull me towards them. It's like a dance. So just letting it unfold, being in the flow state every day as much as possible, really like living the work through the business. So that's how I'm doing it. So if you want me to come visit you wherever you are.
yeah, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes as people can reach out to invite you, right?
Yeah. And reaching more people because I realize like, because I have this information and it's been gifted to me and I've been able to condense it into a book and into a practice, I want to get it in as many hands as possible
Absolutely.
for them
I
to
love
learn.
that it's practical. Your book speaks to a lot of things. It's an incredible read, but I love the practical application in it that allows for everybody to embark on the journey towards, opening more synchronicity, flow states, living in flow states. So I love what you're just saying, you really love working live and in person with people and bringing communities together. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you're actually doing something with a mutual friend and past season 1 guest, Francois, next year. Is that
Yeah, in February, thanks. Yes.
okay?
I almost forgot about that, but I didn't because it's going to be fun. Yeah, on February 7th to the 11th of 2024, just in a few months, Francois and I he's my business partner for the Leadership Squared project, and we're bringing leaders together to Playa del Carmen, to Expuja, to a beautiful new retreat place called Once, which is like paradise on earth. You were there with me.
And vouch for that. I was there last week. It is phenomenal. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen.
It was so special. So yeah, we've anchored that in. And this week we have a special going if anyone wants to join us. So you can reach out to me. I'll get you all the details. But we're bringing only 10 leaders to do a deep dive into peak flow state, high performance. It's a sober retreat. It's kind of a detox, de-stress, get clear for next year, but we're going to be doing it in a different way. We're going to be doing ice baths. We're working through the 4 elements of earth, fire, water, and air, and having really provocative conversations and a lot of fun, testing our boundaries a little bit and working more with the soft skills, the inner work, so that we can have a really powerful year ahead. So if anyone listening wants to join us, you can go to our website, leadership2.net/retreat, and you'll get all the info there.
I love that. We'll make sure to get that in the show notes, depending on when you're listening to the special is December, but the event is in February of 2024. So the location is phenomenal. Aeon and Francois, you guys are both incredible. So this is a very cool opportunity. I think the power of also like community and having others witness your transformation is something that is incredible. And I know, Aeon, you've spoken to that actually just being really fundamental to change and to transformation is having it be part of a group setting.
Yeah, it's critical because we're changing so fast. And when we're doing deep transformational work, which is that inner work and really shedding old stories, old beliefs, letting go of trauma, childhood trauma is a big one. It really informs the way that we show up in the world. And when we release that, we have to create a new story and a new part of us emerges. And when we do it alone, it can be powerful. But when you do it and you're witnessed by others, the transformation not only is so much more powerful but it sticks, right? It completely lands in the body and it grounds in a way with that mirror of the others. And then you have lifelong friends. I mean, I've facilitated over 50 retreats, and every time, each retreat, the people who show up, it's a different, it's a community for 5 days or 3 days. Like you were there for just a whole day, right? And that community is so special. Like you see people change just in one day. They become so much, they get to the next level of their evolution in just a day, right? You saw that. I saw you. And you just probably saw me do it. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's magical. And
there is that power, and I don't want to take us too far off, but of what can happen when you take yourself outside of your day-to-day, I think. And, people, even myself, used to hear the word retreat. Ooh, the like retreat. But it's just, you can do retreats in a million different ways. You can do so many different things. There are people doing them in very different ways than you're doing them that I think are probably doing great things too. But I think it's that power of stepping away and creating, through however it's being run, the space to reflect and connect outside of your day-to-day norms and your habits and your routines, which shape us, right? Those are our identity. And the opportunity to almost try on a new identity and play with it and then take that back, along with, to your point, those new connections that help you, stay accountable into your life and kind of move forward with that. So I think that is so exciting.
It is. It's so powerful. I mean, I have people who've come to my retreats 10 years ago and they're still best friends, or they're business partners, or they met the love of their life. I mean, it's wild and it's so
Amazing.
beautiful. And then the community, we long for that community. All of us long for that perfect family. And while that community can't last, maybe it's not sustainable at that level for, months or years on end, for that weekend or that week, it is. And then we create an environment where it is. And we all need to feel that. It heals us to be with people that are in circle structure, that are doing their own work, that are taking responsibility for themselves, that it's like, it's utopian dream, right? And we get to
Yeah.
experience it. And then we have to go back to our regular lives. And there's an integration period of, it's not as perfect as that week was, but we get to take pieces and continue on. And then we have allies, and those people become your lifelong friends because you need a lifeline as you come up with the hurdles in your own life, your regular life. But I think we're moving, the more we do this and the more people are waking up. Like, I've seen families transform. I've seen, even families or couples do this work together, but doing it alone is so critical.
Amazing. So we've covered a lot of ground. I want to be mindful of your time. Your journey, I mean, it's truly been a wild ride. You have one piece of advice, either for younger Aeon or just anyone who is on their entrepreneurial journey today, what would it be?
Ooh, trust the process. Trust that you're being guided somewhere really beautiful despite the hardships. And have patience with your vision, because it takes time.
I love that. So we have a little bit of addition of a couple wrap-up questions. They're rapid fire. You can pass on them, but they're just a chance for people to get to know you outside of the, important topics that we're talking about in our session. So the first one is, and I think you've probably talked about a lot of these already, but what is an experience that changed your life?
Oh, meeting my first spiritual teacher, Yamada-san. He's a physicist.
Wow.
And a meditation teacher, but yeah, powerful man.
Incredible. What does the word strategy mean to you?
It's just pretending to be God and thinking you can do better than your own design, thinking that your mind can come up with a better solution than creation itself.
All right. That's different. What is a book that has changed your perspective on anything?
Whoa, there's so many. A book that's changed my perspective. Gosh. Wow. I forget the title right now. I think The Body Keeps the Score was one more recent. There's so many. That one's popping up. Just about how stored trauma lives in our body and how it needs to get released in the fascia and the muscles. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good book. That's a powerful one. And last question, if you could go to any concert tomorrow, touring or not, dead or alive, what concert would that be?
Oh, it's that girl. It's funny, I don't know her name, but I saw it yesterday and I was like, oh, I want to be there. Raven, it's like a Siberian shaman that does all this trippy vocal. I just recently found her online and I found out she's going to be in Esalen soon. I was like, I want to go there and meet her. But yeah, I don't know her name. I have to find it. We'll add it to the show note. I'm not a big music goer. Oh, and my friend Keevans, I'll give a shout out to him. I really want to see him in concert.
Amazing.
He's a drum and bass / reggae artist that has really conscious lyrics, and he just got #1 recently in the chart. Check him out.
I love it. Aeon, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for the time, the wisdom that you've shared. If people want to connect with you or continue the conversation, or obviously check out the Leadership Squared February retreat, what's the best way to connect with you?
The best way to connect, well, here on LinkedIn is easy. And you can go to leadership2.net and leave me a message there. And my book is the synchronicitybook.com, and leave me a message there and find it. You can also read all my news and events and follow my tour from there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank
Thanks
you
so
again.
much.
It's been
That's
so
awesome.
amazing. Have an incredible tour. I can't wait to see you again, obviously. So
Yeah.
we'll catch up soon. Thanks for tuning in. Our goal is to create connections and inspire conversations about building great companies. So please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast with your network. Sharing is caring. If you're a business leader or executive team ready to take your leadership and company to the next level with high-performing teams, we'd love to see how we can rocket fuel your growth. Check out the show notes to book your free Builders Business Booster call, where you'll receive a strategic leadership assessment and 3 concrete focus areas to mature and grow your business. You'll also find the link to join the Builders Club to stay up to date on upcoming events, get valuable tools and insights, as well as be the first to receive exciting announcements straight to your inbox. No spam, I promise. You'll also find my website, alexsnyder.com, and all the places to peep my creds, hear what clients have to say, and see if I went to the gym today. And one final note, this podcast is not intended to be legal, tax, or other professional advice. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you on the flip side.